Hello and welcome to Doing Everything to Avoid the Hereafter. Yes, that is an acronym for death. So let's talk about it. So we become a little more comfortable with the inevitable. I'm your host, Jenny Remack. Now let's go make some ripples, you and I.
Mere grains of sand that scattered across the space of time. Ripples on the water. Ripples on the water.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have a very special guest today. Adrian was born in Costa Rica. He is curious by nature, has multiple interests in life, and he wanted to learn the English language to understand music lyrics and is lovingly referred to as the animated movie master. Please help me give a warm welcome to the stage, Adrián Fuentes Molina. Woo! Yay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here, Adrian. It's awesome to have you. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your story. And we met back in I think it was 2022, going into the new year of 2023 in Teo. Is that right?
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
When I was Sebastian at that time,
You were Sebastian, yeah, because there was an opportunity for a group share, and then I got to pick the next person after I shared, and I was like, Sebastian, and then he looks behind him too, and I'm like, no, you, and he's like, oh, me, I'm Adrian. I was like, okay, great. So he's always Adrian Sebastian to me.
Yeah,
Now.
that's funny, and that was a great trip.
Oh my gosh,
That
it
was
was
great.
incredible. Yeah. And over the years, we've been doing this apprenticeship with the Ruiz family, and we've just grown closer and closer. We've gone to different trips, like at Teo again. We just went this last New Year's, and then we went to Joshua Tree. I mean, like all sorts of places where we were really able to bond. And yeah, I'm so grateful for you and being a part of like our spirit tribe. It's been magical. So
Thank you. Well,
yeah.
the book club has been great, and it's been a wonderful group.
Yes, and we do a book club every Sunday, and so it's been really cool to just see where we've been learning and unlearning all these things that we've acquired over the years. So, are you ready to get started?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. So, talk to us a little bit. Share with us your story. What got you on the path of Toltec teachings?
Okay. Well, since I was a kid, I think I all that is ancient cultures and all those things resonates with me. I don't know how to explain it, but like you said, I was really curious since I was a kid. All the time I was asking why and why this, why that. And really early, I understand my mom didn't have, the answers, and the adults around me didn't have the answers. So I kind of went to my inner world and stopped asking at some times because I was asking and I was, in your kid's mind, sometimes you cannot explain to yourself what is happening, but you notice, the reactions or the faces like, oh my God, he's asking this again, or what I'm gonna tell, or stuff like that. That when you grow older, you understand that was the face that you were seeing in the adults. But I was really curious. I really want to learn all those things. And then when I start seeing things about Mayans, Egyptians, and stuff like that, all those things kind of resonate with me. And when I was a teenager, I think it was like at 17 or something, all those things about shamans and all those things, resonate. A cousin told me, you got to meet this guy. He was a curandero, a shaman, it was called. And I went and talked with him. It was a really interesting conversation. And he told me some stuff, and my cousin was like, he's going to tell you something. And I was like, yeah, it was okay. But I was cool with that. She was like kind of surprised. For me, it wasn't. I got some older cousins, and all the time they were saying like, "Why can you be a normal kid?" And it's like a joke or stuff like that. So I was okay with that. Anyway, I'm telling you all those things, trying to link in my story because I was always trying to look for something to connect, to understand, to gather some knowledge. I would say in order to understand myself or to understand the world. And when I read the Four Agreements, it was around 2013, 2014, something like that. A lot of things was like, oh my God, whoa, that's great. Because before that, all the time through my life, I was like, I would love to have like a shaman, like a guide, like a guru or something like that, like could guide me. Because sometimes you don't know something and you want to go somewhere, but you don't know how to start. So when I read the Four Agreements, gave me kind of a structure to some things that I was kind of doing. Because since I was a kid, I was like, I don't give a fuck about what people is gonna say and things like that in many ways, in a rebel way sometimes. And but that gives a kind of a different approach and kind of a structure. So it totally resonates with me. Since I read the books, I was just I started to looking for the other books. And I was starting imagining, how cool would be to be an apprentice of this Don Miguel Ruiz, or just to imagine all those things. And the stories and with the different books, really interesting. And so for me, honestly, when that came up, the opportunity that they were taking apprentices online, COVID, with all the things that happened, gave that opportunity. And for me, was like a dream come true, although it sounds
Yeah.
like cliche or whatever. But I was like, oh my God, especially since I'm in Costa Rica, I'm in Latin America. It's a really different reality than the States. And of course, I went online and looked information for the Ruiz family, Don Miguel, and everything. And you can see pretty much all the things happen in the States. And so when that happened, it was like, whoa. And then the tail trip, and oh my God, beautiful and great for
Yeah.
me, honestly. It wasn't a happy moment in my life, but that part was really good, and that helped me a lot through a lot of things at that particular moment, in 2022, when I started, the apprenticeship with the Ruiz. And since then, I've been doing, the different programs and everything. Like you said at the beginning, we were been together in that trip, and it's great to see and go back a little bit and notice how you have been changing, how you have been changing some ways that we ended up handling or managing or being pretty much, in life.
Yes. Yeah, so you started out as like a naturally curious kid and you kept asking all these questions and then people would look at you and they'd be like, you get the look. So you went inward and you started that journey and then you found you were really curious about shamans and you were really curious about um Don Miguel Ruiz and got into the teachings and then like you said, like a dream come true was to be an apprentice and both you and I have been on this journey of apprenticeship and it's been yeah, it's been incredible too. I would say it's a dream come true as well because it really allows you to have awareness over your dream and decide, like have this power to decide how you're going to show up in the world. And so you said you were going through a hard time in 2022 when you went to Teo and then you were able to really release there and, be able to connect. And, we connected like kind of towards the end. I wish we would have connected a little bit sooner, but you go there and you don't know anybody. Right? Like that's how the trips have gone, when you're new into the work. And so you just go there and you're like, okay, I'm going to put myself out there too, which is another big thing, right? A big leap. So glad you did. So so
Me
grateful to
too.
be on the journey with you and how and you don't have to share about the hard time you were going through, but I would say how have the teachings helped you to work through hard times in your life or to work with them?
Later on, I think we are gonna end up talking about that, because although your podcast is about that and everything,
Oh,
so for
okay,
sure
okay,
we're
yeah.
gonna end up, talking about that. But yeah, it's I don't know, like I said, the teachings give a lot of perspective, help us to unlearn a lot, because we usually ended up doing our best, but doing our best is so conditioned by the things that we have been taught or in the ways that we have been trained. And all the time, I said, there are three things that every single day, every single human is going to use. and we have never been taught about it. Money, you
Mhm.
know, how we eat, so related with health, and emotions, so related with
Mm.
health too. And those three things, it's just the way it is sometimes, the brain always is going to normalize whatever we are used to. And that's the thing, that the Toltec teachings, the Toltec wisdom, along with some other, ancient traditional Buddhism and different, teachings, give us a lot of tools to understand ourselves, to understand the world, to have a better relationship, starting with ourselves, so we could have better relationships with every single human. I really
Yes.
like to think, like from every single encounter that we have every single day, let's hope that we ended up, after encounter, in a better way, in a better mood.
Mhm.
You know, even though it could be
Yeah.
just like good morning, hello, good afternoon, or whatever. But how whatever we have inside is gonna project at some point. We're gonna end up doing something. And for me, that explains a lot how the world is right now in so many ways, because there's a lot
Yes.
of chaos inside of a lot of people, and it's so natural that it's gonna project in some ways to the outside world. So um, I'm going through all the branches, but like I said, all those teachings give us a lot of give us a lot of tools that we could help ourselves, uh, to regain power. We are so powerful, we are so powerful, especially in our own life, but we don't feel it. We are not trained to be aware of all those
Mm.
things.
Yes. We're not trained to be aware of our power. We're actually trained to kind of quiet it down or dumb it down, our power, because there's people that want to control, like the whole, subjugation, war of control, the different things that go on. And so you talked about chaos happening internally being a projection out. So if somebody is like having a chaotic experience in their inner world, that is going to be projected out, and they're going to be experiencing more and more of that in their outer world, because the outer world for me and my understanding is a mirror of how I'm doing internally. So, and you said too, there's like ways we can show up with saying hi to someone. That's not hard to do. Being kind is really not hard to do. It is a choice point. And so, making those decisions, showing up with awareness, showing up how we're showing up, and how powerful we really are. And you mentioned tools too. So I want to go back to that because you said the three things. You said money, emotions, and eating, right? Healthy eating, food. Yeah. And so talk more about that and how that has kind of aligned with you and these learnings. Like how do you see money? How do you see your health, your food? And how do you see your emotions now that you've done this work?
It's interesting when we ask people, where do you live? I I think I shared that before with you, but it's really interesting. Sometimes just an experiment. I ask people, where do you live? Usually people is gonna say, Colorado,
Right.
Costa Rica, California, in the States or whatever. No, no, where do you live? And people is like, well, the city name is blah blah blah, or the neighborhood is no, no, no. Where do you live? You live
Mhm.
here. You live here.
Yeah.
We inhabit in some place, but we live
Mhm.
here. Our bodies is the real place where we live. It's starting from
Right.
there, it's starting from there. So we gotta see this as a temple. We gotta see
Mhm.
this as my house, as my car. I'm the pilot
Right.
inside there. We are limited by our senses. Jenny, the image that I can see in the screen, but the real you is inside there. It's beyond my eyes. That's why the Little Prince
Yeah.
book is so great. The really important thing is invisible to our eyes. And
Mm.
and and that's the thing. That's we are limited by our body in many ways, but we gotta honor that. That's the vehicle that we're gonna have. As long as we are here in this lifetime, to honor that is starting from there. Because to respect ourselves, to love ourselves.
Mm.
I think Everything starts from there in a way. Once again, if we are in peace with us, if we're taking care of us, it's gonna be easier to relate with the outside world. When the planes, like they said, put your oxygen mask first yourself before
Yeah.
you can help somebody. That's the way. That's the natural way. That's the way it's gonna work. We have been so trained to believe that all the answers are in the outside, that somebody's going to tell me what I'm supposed to do. Starting from there, and we have been trained to do that. It's not easy
Yeah.
to go back, and it's about learning so many ways. Domestication is so heavy in humans, and when we were kids, we were really free. We were
Yeah.
really free. We didn't like it, we say it.
Right. Yeah.
If we think that, we're going to say it. And
Mhm.
as long as we go, to adapt to social, rules and all those things, of course we need them, but there are some points that oh my God, it's been so limiting, and so capsulating, and it's like a jail in many ways. We ended up having, damn, a jail over here, a cage, completely a mental cage in many ways. And y- sometimes a lot of people just accept, that's the way it is. Domestication is so heavy. And I always think about a scale. There's family, religion, uh, governments, rules, whatever, school, and the person. For a lot of people, usually the context is so heavy that it's gonna, weight a lot more than the person. Is really, it takes a lot to be a rebel and to question and question and
Yeah.
question, at least to balance, that thing, or that you ended up, waiting more than your context, that your environment, because of course the people that you have around is going to influence you. They're going to install some programs in the way you think. If we live in India, we're going to worship the cows. It's so simple, just like that. Just because you were born there, it's going to be really different to this
Mm.
side. If you were born in
Yeah.
Japan or whatever, that completely changes everything.
Mhm.
Be aware about all those things, because sometimes, there's a lot of people who doesn't even make those questions to question why I believe in this. It could be that
Yes.
we're talking in English. English is not my native language. I like you said in the beginning, when I was in primary school and I started listening to music and everything. When there was something in English, I really want to understand. Okay, I really like this music. When I when I was in my teen years, listening Guns N' Roses, Metallica, and all those great bands, or the 60s bands, and rock and roll and all those things, I was like, I want to understand what are they saying. I really like the music and the rhythm and all those things. But just the fact that we are speaking in English is because we are in this side of the world. This is a program that we got to learn, and everything in life works the same way, at the end. That's the thing.
Yeah. It does, right? I mean, you mentioned, I want to go back to, you mentioned the body as a vehicle, right? And the vehicle is where we're living. It's our home for now. It's not like a place. We tend to identify with yeah, I'm in Colorado, I'm in Costa Rica, wherever. But the thing is that our home is here. It's our temple, and we get to decide how to treat it. And we're influenced by people's places and things. And so we get to decide, is this serving me or is this not serving me? And so the people that we hang around with, the places that we go, the food that we ingest, all the things are going to make a big difference on how we show up. And so I think you have this beautiful way of speaking in metaphors too. How you talk about being a pilot. You talked about the oxygen mask too, and putting the mask on first. But I would love for you to talk about a little bit about how, when we're navigating, as the pilot of the plane, kinda how that goes, because I love when you
Sure,
you talk about this.
sure. Consciousness, awareness, is give us really different perspectives in life. I would say, because it's so related. When you're kind of sad, you won't see the
Mhm.
things in the same way when you're happy, or at least if you're neutral, and so I really like to think that we are a pilot, and there, if this is the plane, in our life, or whatever, it's really different if we're landed, and the way we can see mountains up in the sky, some clouds, maybe we cannot see the sun because it's cloudy or it's raining or whatever. But we are the pilot, and that's the power. What I was saying, we don't know the power that we have. When we take our plane and we want to go up, it's really different. We're, flying low. And if we take it a little bit higher and everything, it's really different if we just flying through clouds. Whatever, or what we can see or what we cannot see is just clouds. And that's the thing, to be aware about what are we doing, because we're just, sometimes it's just accepting it is what it is and that's it. And no, sun is there. The sun is always gonna be there. If there are some clouds, that's the thing. If I want to take my awareness, the way I'm living or whatever, to see the sun, I have the power. I'm the pilot in my plane, to take it up and to go through the clouds and realize
Yes.
the sun is there. When
Hmm.
we were kids, we were happy by nature. We were curious by nature. And then it's like, they put in a lot of clouds, a lot of smoke in Toltec terms, a lot of domestication, a lot of programs and everything. And then it's like, you got to fly low. Like, no, sun is there. The, the spark that all of us has inside of us, the energy, we could take the plane up, and realize the sun is there. Once again, it requires, work. It requires to be aware it is up to you. That's why the agreements helps a lot. When you realize people are doing things, they are not doing things to you. When you're not supposing and creating stories in your mind, that regains a lot of power, because you save a lot of energy. We're like a cell with a battery every single day. When it starts the day after a good night's sleep, you have 100% of battery, but then you got to play roles in this society and everything. At the end of the day, you're not piloting in the same way the plane, maybe if it has been an exhausting day, and you're gonna take things in a different way. So that's why I said the agreements give us a lot of opportunities. Life is going to give us opportunities, and we can use anything and everything as an opportunity to practice, as an opportunity to realize something, to learn something at the end. The apprentice's mind in everything in life, and to save that power, to be aware that about that is like at what high I'm flying right now. Sometimes we're
Hmm.
not aware, and maybe we're just like this, and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna
Yeah.
crash. But just to be aware about all those things. We are so powerful. We have been trained with domestication and all those things. It's like, giving away the wheel. Somebody's going to take
Yeah.
the wheel for me. You know,
Right.
that's the thing. We got to live our life. We have been trained in so many ways, and I would give my life for this and that. The thing is, you cannot eat for anybody else. You cannot breathe for
Mm.
anybody else, even though sometimes you want to, and
Yeah.
because you care about somebody. But that's the thing, at the end is that, to realize that, and the more aware we are about that, the more we can help, the more we can serve to other people.
Yes.
Sometimes and it's not about, you gotta do this or do that. Sometimes it's just by example. That's the best way. At the end, when we were kids, we learned by example more than anything. We're gonna ended up modeling either by repetition, what we saw, we normalize that, or by rejection. I don't like this, so we ended up being, totally contrary to whatever we were seeing as kids. But to be aware about all those little things, and well, the more aware we are, we realize we are the pilot in that plane.
Yes. I love that. Thank you for describing that to us because I think it's so powerful. And I think of the agreements as like the fuel for our fuel tank. And so it's like when we have these leaks or we're starting to go down in the plane, we can have the awareness and we can tap in and be like, "Oh, shoot. Okay. Here's how I can navigate up." It's like giving ourselves more fuel and still maintaining the wheel because you're right, we can easily give the wheel away when we're not impeccable with our word, for example. When we say yes when we really mean no, and we're conditioned oftentimes to do that to be polite or to be respectful or whatever the case may be, but it was somebody else's I don't know, programming install, and then they try to install it to us, and then we later wake up and realize, "Oh my gosh, this installation doesn't jive with me. It's no longer compatible. I need to update my Windows, I need to update my system." And so I love that metaphor, that analogy of, being the pilot and understanding that, yes, you are the pilot of this plane, and this plane is your body, and how you treat it is, where you're gonna go with it. And also you mentioned too, a desire to learn English through music. I think that is so cool, like with Guns N' Roses and the different bands that you listen to. And I was a lot like you as a kid. I was like rebellious, curious. I got my dad got me the Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 Guns N' Roses album, and my mom about lost it. She was like, "Oh no," because it had like cuss words and all the things. And I was like, "Fuck yeah." And so anyway, music is a great teacher, I think, for us. And so that really inspired you to learn English. So that's super powerful. So I wanted to comment on that too. I think that's really cool. You mentioned this spark inside of you. So it's like this inner being, this light, this soul. People have different names for it. But what do you think happens when that inner spark leaves the body?
Okay. First time I saw a dead body, I was 5 years old. Uh,
Okay.
a brother of my grandma, my mom's mom, was dying,
Mhm.
and my mom was there with my grandma, and he was dying, and I was really little, but I can remember a lot about that. And I need to pee. Of course, my mom took me to the bathroom, and I remember, we were washing our hands or something, and my grandma started screaming, she just dead, Uncle Tio Jose, Uncle Joe. So he's just dead. And I remember my mom running, and I was like, she just took me, and so we
Yeah.
went there, and I saw the body, and in my kid's mind, now I can understand what was happening, but at that moment, I was just, seeing and believing that, but that experience for me was so clear. We are not this. I cannot put it in. Now I can put it into words. When I was a kid, it was like, okay, he's not there. That's it. He's not him. That body is not him. That's it. And it's just my point of view. At the end, don't believe me anything, because it's just my point of view. It's my experience. It's my story. It's my life, and that's the way I try to understand whatever happened. But I realize we are not the body. I remember when they make the wake and all those things. In my kid's mind, it was like kind of a circus, because everybody was like, "Okay, we gotta see it," and all. The person is not there. The the
Mm,
the person, the one that we call, Uncle Joe or whatever, John Doe, whatever, whoever is the name of the person, is not there. We are not. We are not this. That's what I was saying before. The real Jenny is inside of the plane, of the spaceship, or the car, or whatever way we want to see it. The real Adrian is inside here. We, with our eyes, we gotta see, and we gotta interact with this in this plane. But we are more than that. When I was a kid, that was my first encounter with death. And in my kid's mind, to be honest, like I said, it makes me realize we are more than that. There's something else. And I think I link that to all that curious things about I want to learn. There are some other things. I really like the Asian cultures when I started seeing stuff, how they approach to death instead of the way that we usually approach to death when we were kids. Because I remember at that time, the people saying, now he's sleeping, now he went to heaven, now he blah, 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 and lies here and there, and like I said, kind of a circus, people coming that weren't there for months. Now they appear with flowers and stuff like that. And
mm,
in my kid's mind, it was like, okay, got no sense. I couldn't understand a lot
yeah.
of stuff, and it was the way it is, and but from that moment when I saw that body, I was like, okay, we're more than that. So trying playing that, and my interest is with death and all those things. I don't know why, but I always love skulls and
Yeah.
and all those things since I was a kid. I was really interested about all those things. Then music, of course, with logos and all those things, it had me, it kind of hooked me. And then learning and reading about all those things is really interesting. To understand human history in many ways, I would say like the past century and a half, maybe a century or something like that, death has been so sanitized in a way. We
Mm,
kind of remove it from the everyday life in many ways. But if you think about 300 years ago, people see death everywhere because, healthy conditions and all those things. But I mean, how different will be because it's kind of the ultimate fear that humans have. Since we were kids, the first time when we see somebody is dying or somebody is dead, or a pet just die or something, if the adults went to the kids and explained them, we got a limited time here, we got to be happy. That's going to happen to every single person instead of all the lies that we ended up, telling kids that usually people ended up doing, trying
mhm.
to avoid pain with the best intentions. But that's why they say with the best intentions, is paved the way to hell in many ways. It's so
Yes.
true. Because since that moment, with that, just thinking the way it is, and about death, how it will be a different approach. I really like the Dia de Muertos, the Day of the Dead tradition in Mexico, about that, to honor death, to honor life in a way,
Uh-huh.
because I really love when I read the Four Agreements, what Don Miguel said about the angel of death and everything. That's what I use this one as a reminder constantly. At least the skull for me is a power object in order to remind all those things. But how different, and it's not easy to do it, of course. And our brain doesn't like to not know. There's always looking for a
Mhm.
story to make sense in a way, to give some meaning. At the end, what happens when we die? Whoever says something, we really don't know at the end, and that's really interesting when we talk or see or read about, people that have really near death experiences. That's really interesting. Don Miguel's story is one of the amazing ones, I
Yeah.
would say, in many ways.
Mhm.
And all those things, but definitely there's more than that. And when I was a kid, I was like, there's more than that. So I always think, if we think about the spectrum of light, if it is like this, the human eye can see something like this. We cannot see the microwaves, we cannot see the ultraviolet, we cannot see the gamma rays, the X-rays, and all those things. And it's something like that. Our mind, if is something like that, if knowledge and understanding life is something like this, our mind just can barely handle things like this. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. So I think when any of us move from this plane, from the temple, from our body,
Yeah.
from our house, it's like, I think it's like a veil is gonna be removed,
Mm.
and it's gonna be something different, in a way. All the limitations that we have in our body are gonna be removed in a way. I really like Rumi, what he says, we're like a drop of the ocean that contains the
Mhm.
ocean itself, but just went back to the ocean. It's it's kind of that idea, because at the end, everything is connected. We're connected with everything, and that's part of the illusions that we have been so well trained that we're not connected. But if you think about that, we're breathing air that at some point was on the other side of the world. Just like that,
Yes.
we're linked in that way. Just thinking about air, about water, just thinking about that at the end. But we are so trained to believe we are so disconnected just by we're born in this country and I'm in that country and we're enemies, and all those crazy fucking ideas at the end. But we are so connected in a way. So going back to death, I think that that's something that is removed. Death, the way we have been trained, I think is like an illusion. It helps a
Mm.
lot to control people in a way, because control is usually based in fear and guilty and that helps a
Yeah.
lot for a lot
Mhm.
of different systems in society. But that's why I said, since we were kids in a moment when we were facing that, a good explanation, I think, it's gonna give more peace to that kid in a way. I think, of course, there gonna be some questions. I don't know. It's interesting. Adults doesn't like to say to kids, "I don't know the answer. Let's look for it together." Or,
Mm.
"I don't know. I think this, but maybe it's not the truth." Just,
Mhm.
some honesty there, some authenticity there about the questions. And because, like I said, not all the people wants to look for answers, and a lot of people ended up, just swallowing whoever said something, if religion or the family, of course, with best intentions, but definitely is not helping a lot of people. I think the
Right.
way the world is and how people behave in many ways, I think is an evidence of that.
Yeah, I love what you said about, if parents could get with their kids and their kids are like, "Oh, well, what does this mean?" or have an honest conversation, that we all will get to that point eventually. And to understand, like, you knew that your uncle wasn't the body. Like, you were like, "That's not him. Like, he's gone." Like, you knew in that moment, you were like, he's not there." The inner light that animates the body goes elsewhere. And, that's the great, mystery of life is like, well, where does it go? I love how you said the veil kind of will thin, it'll be, a different experience. And I think the universe is so big and so vast that how could this be it? How could Earth just be it? Like, how could this only be our only experience? And I feel like often we do live multiple lives and have multiple experiences and journeys. And I think in this lifetime, I was allowed to wake up and remember that I am not a body. Like you said, we're not this plane. We're here for a temporary amount of time. And I get to choose how I treat this body and how I treat other bodies that are around me. And that is the ultimate, I think, power to know that you have this ability to show up in a way that can be kind and loving because we all came from love. You talked about being connected through the breath. I mean, the breath, like we're breathing air that has been breathed by many, many, many people and all across the world. And what's really funny about breath, too? We can't see it, but we know it exists. We believe it exists, right? So I think about that as spirit. We may not be able to see spirit, but we know that it exists. We know that it's there. And so you had mentioned in 2022 going through a hard time and I wanted to ask you about like what was that like for you? Because I have a feeling I know what you're gonna talk
Sure.
about.
Oh,
Think
sure.
yeah.
Like you saying, there are so many. That's what I was saying about the spectrum of light. And I always love how animals and babies, are so connected about that, because sometimes a baby doesn't want somebody to hold him or whatever, because they can
Uh-huh.
feel energy. And as every single
Yeah.
human, as an adult, we could do that too. But we have been domesticated ourselves, or have been domesticated since we were kids, to avoid all those things. But intuition is there. Your gut is telling you something, the aura and all those things. We can feel when somebody is sad. We can feel when somebody is really happy. And energy is contagious. That's the thing. That's why we got to be
Yeah.
selective and careful about, our surroundings and our context. Going back to that, my mom died in 2020, 2, 3 weeks before the closings of the pandemic. It wasn't because of the pandemic, but it happened in a really fast in an unexpected way. She died a day before my birthday, so it was a really special date.
Wow.
Um, so so many things around that. It put my world in upside down in many ways. And at that point, and then I nobody knew what was coming, in 2020 for everybody. But for me,
Yeah.
the pandemic and the closings and everything were kind of a secondary thing, because I was going through losing my mom. So it was really hard months. It was really, really hard. Like you cannot see anybody, you cannot go outside. I love to go to hike or whatever, and it was forbidden and all those things. Oh my God, it was hard.
Yeah.
My main tools pretty much were the Toltec teachings. At that point, it was only with the books, but that helped me a lot, give me perspective in many ways. Although I was total mess, now I can see how bad I was. The Stoic philosophy, the Stoicism, helped me a lot too. And then in 2021, when they announced the apprenticeship, about with the Reese's, there was a part of me who really wanted to do that. And there was a part of me who was like, oh my God, this is too much. I felt so bad at that point. I ended up getting in until the next time they announced it. And right before that, and it's interesting. Sometimes we don't give the permission to us to do some things. In 2021, at the middle of 2021, I started an inner child work with a Mexican psychologist that helped me a lot. It helped me to go, inside in many ways. So start. I need to heal. I was aware I need help. I was aware I need help because I wasn't okay. So we go to 2022. I was doing the inner child thing. I was doing some shamanism stuff. I started with the Reese's and everything. I got a friend who was like, man, you're going to go crazy. You're going to
Mm.
go crazy. I was like, man, I feel good. It's helping me a lot in many ways because we're more than our mind in many ways. In 2022, I ended up going to Peru. That helped me a lot. It was an inner journey in so many ways with some shamans there. And then at the end of the year, going to Teo, which was amazing. That helped me a lot, to realize a lot of things. And since the moment when my mom passed away, that's why I mentioned the veil and all those things, that is an illusion. Love is stronger than death. I'm so
Mhm.
sure about that. Love is stronger than death. My mom started to communicating to me in so many different ways, in a it was beautiful. There you go. The cat is the cat is
Yeah,
saying
she
she's agreeing.
agrees.
She agrees. But yeah, my mom started to communicating with me in so many ways and in so beautiful ways, and that helped me a lot. I still have connection with my mom, and dreams, butterflies, one of the ways that he communicated with me, in so many different things. That's why I said, that is like an illusion, of course, I miss her. I want to hear her voice. I want to hug her and everything. And that's not possible right now, but it doesn't mean we're still, having that link. We have that connection. And, so when we went to Teo, I remembered walking to the pyramids, and from the hotel, and we start talking about that, and we start sharing all those things, and then at the end when we share and everything, I remember there was an exercise that Mikey, uh, a homework that gave us to us, and wow, when he said that, I was like, oh my God, he's like just talking to me. He's like putting that exercise, and that helps me a lot and gives me perspective. That helped me a lot, and that helped me to heal all that process. But it's interesting, sometimes we think we know we're getting better, but sometimes we think we're good. Now I can see I wasn't good. When we met, I
Yeah.
wasn't really good. I'm still, really bad. But I was better than 2020 at least. Now I
Mhm.
can see it. It's so easily to confuse sometimes, a wound with a scar. It's really different. It's
Mm.
really different. But we have been so trained since we were kids, I would say. Uh, I mentioned that as the ultimate fear, but with emotion, that's why I said, they don't teach us about that. And you know, we're trying to get away from emotions or from death and all those things. It's like running away from your own shadow in a way.
Yeah.
And all this process, all those teachings and all those things help us to understand and to embrace, to acknowledge, first of all, I would say, to acknowledge all those parts, all those emotions, all those process, all those wounds, and
Yeah.
then, start doing something in order to feel better. Love starts with me. Peace starts with me. We cannot give anything that we don't have. I cannot
Right.
talk to you in Chinese because I don't speak Chinese. That's the way it is. It's so
Yeah.
simple, at the end. That's why we got to take care of ourselves, starting with ourselves. But yeah, and I mentioned all those ideas, regarding that, because at that moment, I was grieving. I was grieving. It was at that point, a couple of really tough years. I know for everybody was tough, and because the pandemic and all that implies with the pandemic and all those crazy years, that is interesting. They look so far away in a way, but they were so close if you think about it. And I don't know, it changes a lot. For me, it was kind of secondary because my mom was a really the most important bubbling. But my mom was important to me, the relationship that I had with her and everything. It 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 really affected me. It really, hit me hard in so many
Yeah.
ways. At that point, I was processing a lot, honestly. And well, this journey through the teachings and everything helped me a lot, and realize and to be aware the way I was, handling my plane, and
Mhm.
then not in the best way, but at the same time to realize I was doing the best with the information that I have at the moment. I was doing the best with whatever I feel and everything, because it's so easy to judge ourselves, our past versions of ourselves, and but to realize that I was doing the best that I could at the moment, and it has been a process. I think it's part of a never ending process, but with different stages on that process. Because at the end, is life.
Mhm.
All of us are gonna face that. All of us, in a way, loved ones ourselves. That's the last one. That's the final battle in this video game. But
Yeah.
or the final level. But we're gonna face that, yeah, at some point in different points in our lives. And the more tools, the more awareness, the more love we have, the more peace we have. We could handle it in a better way. It's gonna help us, with our wounds and with the process that it requires. Definitely requires. That's why I said before, that has been so sanitized, removed in a way. We barely see a dead body, we barely see a corpse and everything. But you think, a couple of 100 years ago, 300 years ago, it was everyday stuff in a
Yeah.
really different way. It was it's like for people who works in those things in hospitals and everything, it's like kind of a everyday thing. But yeah,
Mhm.
that's the way life it is. It's, it's, that is just another part of life. It's like, I think, like another door is open and a veil is removed. It's an illusion. It's kind of an illusion. Like I said, for me, love is stronger than death. Honestly.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, I love that you said that. Love is stronger than death because and thank you for sharing all of that, about your journey and your experience with that because you embarked on an inner journey. You did some inner child healing, some work with a psychologist in Mexico, and you did work around the teachings and really looking back, with almost compassionate eyes of, wow, I was really wounded at that time. I was really not doing well when she passed, and that's okay. That's where I was at. I was doing my best with what I knew. And so you were doing what you could, to work and process through that. And so, getting dreams, visitations, I call those from your mom. You have dreams about her, butterflies, there's different signs that come up. And I love when our loved ones share signs with us because, it's just their way of saying, this is an illusion. You're not like your body's gone, but you're still your life force is still there, and the nagual, like you're still there. Like it's still Is that right? Is it the Nagual? Is that the
Well,
life
yeah,
force?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So so I think that it's like, understanding that is gonna continue and that the love always is there and love is stronger than death. Love definitely is stronger than death, and I love that you said that. So, yeah, thank you for talking us through that. And you talked about a wound and a scar. And so when you're wounded, I think it's hard because for me, I was a really good victim. Like, when I'm wounded, I'm in a victimhood and I'm very much um, that can feed off of it. But then when I have a scar, I feel like I have more awareness of my victim and my judge, and I don't necessarily have to be a victim to it. The scar has taught me, you know, what the wound was. And I wanted to get
I
your perspective on that too, like how you
Sure.
see the difference.
I think all of this and many things in life are related to the idea of responsibility. Since we were kids, everything is like, don't do this, don't do that, or you gotta do this, you gotta do it that way, that's the way it is, and blah blah blah. In the moment, so we have been trained to expect orders or the right ways or the way it is supposed to be done or whatever, instead of being responsible for whatever you're doing, for the consequences of your decisions. And money, food, and emotions at the end, is all of them require responsibility.
Right.
Ability to respond at the end,
Mhm.
to answer to
Yeah.
something. And when we are victims, we have been kind of trained to that, because when you feel sad, somebody's gonna come. Somebody's gonna do it for me, and all those things. Since really early, one of the phrases that I use to myself is victim or responsible, victim or responsible, asking myself to
Mhm.
whatever I have in front of me. That kind
Yes.
of makes me move my ass, move your butt,
Yeah.
you move it.
Yeah.
Because at the end, it's like when we are in a victim role, it's like, energy is really low. You don't want to do anything, and nothing's going to change. At the end, action, being responsible requires action, requires awareness, and to do something. Sometimes you don't even know what you want, but if you realize what you don't want, that makes you move sometimes, and
Yes.
then and that's the thing, to be responsible at the end. You got to be responsible for your wound. Your wound is gonna get really bad if you just stay there. Okay, heal it. And that maybe is really dirty and everything. You need to clean it. You need to take
Right.
care of it. And you got to be responsible for that. But we have been so trained to put responsibility outside, so we find a guilty. Somebody's got to be
Mhm.
guilty. There's judgment there. There's gonna be punishment, because once something or someone is found guilty, there's got to be some punishment. And all those corrupt ideas at the end, instead of like, let's observe, let's see, let's understand. More understanding, less judgment at the end. That's the thing. And the more we understand and being responsible about something, I think it's part of that power, that we could do something. We could change something if we don't like to, and if we don't like something, we could change it. And instead of, like you said, sometimes the victim role has some benefits, you know,
Mhm.
because somebody's going to help me. They're going to feel bad for me and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not responsible. It's not my fault at the end.
Right.
Instead of, it's, but we have been trained. That's the thing. We have been trained that way. So it requires work. It requires something of yourself, and it's to be aware about all that power that we have at the end. And I would say the Toltec teachings helps a lot. Buddhism or whatever, Asian tradition in a way, because all of them is a lot about common sense, about
Mhm.
responsibility, about love, about forgiveness, about realizing all the illusions sometimes. Because I really love what Don Miguel says, the real battle in the world is not about good and bad, it's about true and lies.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
so many. things that are not the truth, that are the truth by the world is behaving, because that lie now is the truth. So that's the way it is supposed to be, and just to start
Mm.
questioning all those things. Responsibility, everything requires responsibility and awareness.
I love that you said that, because responsibility, the ability to respond, because you could be wounded, you could be bleeding out, but you're gonna bleed out unless you take responsibility and take action and, like, address it and literally, be able to look at it and see it for what it is and see that it's not somebody else's wound, it's yours. And maybe somebody else, like, did something that provoked a wound, but now that it's your wound, it's your responsibility. It's like, "You may have pushed my buttons, but you didn't invent them," as Mary Jo would say. I love that because it's like, "Oh, yeah, now it's me, it's part of me, so it's my responsibility." And oftentimes in the dream of the planet, as Miguel Ruiz will refer to it as, is we are constantly looking for blame outside, and if we could just take a moment to breathe, check in, and really see where our plane's at, we could really do a number of so much healing and good. Because he always says, "Help me change the world by changing your world." He doesn't say, "Go change Adrian's world," or "Go change, somebody else's world." He says, "Change your own." And once you do that, your experience is so different, because you're no longer this victim or blaming everybody for your own shit. Your own shit is yours, and, like, you clean it up. So, I think it's really powerful, like you were talking about. That's taking your power back.
We are, I think, and so attached to the personality or the way it is. We don't give permission to ourselves in so many areas in our lives. And healing is one of the things that we gotta kind of give us permission sometimes. Because, like you were saying, sometimes playing the victim role, that's the automatic reaction to whatever happened. Oh, they did that to me, or I feel that, and boom, instead of like, no, I could do something else, and
Right.
seeing my journey, like I was saying, when I was about to do the inner work child, there was a part of me who wanted to do it, and the other part, like, okay, you got to see how much money is going to be and blah blah blah, because we start doing all those things, and discussing ourselves priorities, and then priority was to get better, to heal, like you said, because I was bleeding
Mhm.
out, and I was aware about that. And that gave me, I gave myself permission. Now I can see it. At the moment, probably I wasn't really aware or really conscious about what I was doing, but I was giving myself that permission to, I need that information. I need that help. I need that
Yeah.
process. And that process lead me then, when the risk came up again with the opportunity to enroll, I was like, oh my God, I'm going there. I'm diving there,
Yeah.
and it's been a journey, definitely, but from moment to moment, to take care of ourselves at the end, to do something for ourselves, because uh so is that's the way we have been trained, in a way, to take care about somebody that you really care. And sometimes you're gonna do things for somebody else that you're not thinking about doing to yourself or for
Mhm.
yourself.
Totally.
And that's the thing. Once again, we gotta realize we gotta take care of ourselves. The more we take good care of ourselves, it's gonna be easier to serve people in a way to change the world, like you said. At the
Mhm.
end, that's the thing. We change, of course, and it's gonna be the ripple effect and everything. And it's it's part of all those things. We're connected at the end, but everything starts with us.
Yes. Wait, it is the ripple effect, right? So we are connected, and we understand that if I can be of service to me, to the love of my life, as Jose will refer to themselves as, is like, yes, we are the love of our life, and we get to be that. And I remember doing a training, and this person was like, "Love myself. I don't even like myself." How many people like see themselves that way? They're like, "Oh, I don't even like myself. I love my spouse or I love my partner, but myself, pff, forget it." If you were to take that energy and invest that time and, like you said, the money, like how we do that in the inner child work or whatever work it is that you feel that needs to be checked in on, to be loved, to be healed, so that you can have scars instead of wounds, we wouldn't be, like, activating everybody, right? We wouldn't be like these walking activators of people in a negative way. We'd be activating in positive ways, right?
Because
It'd just
it's
be
like rubbing wounds, you know?
Yeah,
People is
right, yeah.
like rubbing wounds, and there's some things that I like, or like I said, playing ping pong. Every
Yes.
single time when you walk out, it's like playing ping pong. There's a lot of people who has a racket, and they're looking somebody to play ping pong. Whatever they have inside is gonna be playing. So it's up to us to realize that. I don't know. I make a lot of pictures or movies in my mind to
Yes.
try to understand and to be so graphical. That helps me a lot, to remind me all those things. Because a lot of people, it the way people drive sometimes is like they're trying to play ping pong with what
Mm.
you know
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Totally.
they're honking and they're screaming and they're cursing and boom, people is so reactive, and
Right.
they're like playing ping pong. I'm gonna say the worst curse. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy. But
Yes.
everything and anything, like I said before, is like, okay, somebody is giving you a gift. It's up to you to put your
Uh,
hands on it. Every single interaction in every single day is pretty much like that. If you go to the supermarket and the cashier is in a bad mood and starts talking to you bad, and it's up to you to say, okay, have a good day or whatever. And that's
right.
it. It's up to you to put the hands or to leave your hands behind, and
Mm.
that's it. I don't want to play ping pong with shit. That's
Yeah.
the thing,
Yeah.
but you're giving me, you're saying with good manners, okay, let's play ping pong with kindness. Let's play ping pong.
Mm.
This is really different. It's a really different experience. Like we were saying,
It
like you,
is.
like you were saying, everything changes.
It is, and it's like, I love that you had the open hands and you could be that way towards a cashier, or you could go to the cashier with your hands behind your back, right? And it's like, the choice is always yours. It's always in your hands to decide how you're going to interact with that person. And so I think that's so powerful when you think about it, like kindness, show up with ping pong and kindness, like playing ping pong with kindness, right? And you mentioned you do speak a lot in like animation, and is there an animation film that really speaks to all the work that you've been doing? Or is there something that you can kind of pinpoint of, oh yeah, like Pixar does a great job at doing this? Because I know you find Easter eggs, like these little gems in a lot of the animations. And I didn't know if you had one that you could speak on that has really helped you.
Oof, there are so many, I would say, because there
I
are some
know.
really great ones. Pixar definitely has a bunch really good. Inside Out helps a lot, I would
Yeah.
say, to understand ourselves and to understand other people in a really funny way. Because both uh, Inside Out movies has been great in a way
Yes.
to understand ourselves. I love that movie in so many ways.
Me too.
Um, Puss in Boots too is great.
Yes.
Talking about death, I would say I really like that movie. I didn't expect it to be that well, and for me, that was great
Hmm.
about death. The way they did Puss in Boots too. For me, that's great. Just to mention a couple, but oh my God, there. I love Coco.
Yeah.
For example, and there are so many great animation films. Usually have a lot of things that anybody could see it, but at the end, everything is meaning and symbolism in a way, because for some people, a skull could be something satanic or whatever and could give them whatever meaning they want to have. And for other
Yeah.
person, that represents another thing completely, in a ritualistic way or in a symbolic way. We do that with anything in life at the end. My special shirt or I don't
Yeah.
know, your special watch or whatever. And we do that all the time, it's up to us. But we have been swallow all those ideas or all these symbolisms about, uh, ideas or ways of thinking, beliefs, and all those things without questioning them. and that's the thing.
Yeah.
When we were kids, all the time we were asking, why this, why that, why this? And like I was saying, there that volume and instead of going down and a little bit and then just accepting and no, all of us we have an inner child there. That's why I said all sometimes, and usually you understand the world if you see that is full of inner childs wounded in adults' bodies.
Yes.
The way we see a person, if that person is in a bad mood, we don't know what happened to that person, 10 minutes ago or yesterday.
Mhm.
Or and that's the thing, if we're more kind to ourselves, it's easier to do that, to understand that, to see that person, with eyes of love or with eyes of understanding before judgment or before they are doing something to me, they're attacking me, because pretty much that's it. Somebody reacts in a way that we don't like, and it's an attack. Maybe it's not an attack. Maybe just like it has its storms there, like a percuspin, or something like that, and
Yeah.
that's it. It, it, we don't know what happened to the other person, and
Mhm.
sometimes we don't even understand ourselves. And well, going back to the movies and all those things uh, about symbolism, that's why a kid could laugh a lot in one of those cartoon movies, and an adult can understand a lot, and in if you have been doing some work or reading or something, sometimes you can relate. I really like the idea of connect dots.
Yes. Mhm.
I'm all the time trying to connect dots, but that's really interesting, and how deep we can go in some movies that present us, some
Mhm.
ideas in easier ways to understand or to integrate some some mechanisms of what's happening, in our minds.
Yes. I love that you said see through the eyes of understanding, and like you can, like a child can see something, laugh a lot, and then an adult can see something. And if they've been doing work, they'll be like, oh, like they'll see the deeper, like, whoa, like the gems, the Easter eggs that are hidden within so many movies. It doesn't even have to be an animated movie. And I love like you're talking about, Coco. That's a great movie. I didn't see Puss in Boots 2. I don't think. I think I just
You
saw
gotta
the
see
first
it.
one. I gotta see
You
the I
gotta
just
see
saw
it.
that'll be on my
Definitely, you gotta see it.
watch list, and you gotta see, The Sheep Detectives. That
I
was
know.
something that I just saw in the movie theater recently, and so many themes, like unconditional love, avoidance, complexities of life, death, big, big conversations about death, and so many, Easter eggs in that one too. So, I can't wait for you to see that one. I can't wait to talk to you about
I
it.
will.
Um Last question I have for you is what do you have left on your bucket list? Is there anything
Oof,
that you still wanna do that
so
you're
many
like
things. So many
Yeah,
things, like 3 more lives or something like that, I guess.
yeah.
Once we go there, I would say, life is like a movie theater. I really love when Don
Mm,
Miguel used that in the book, because at the end, we go to 100 people in a movie theater will see the same movie, but it's not the same movie. It's not the same meaning that all of them are gonna give to that movie. And that's the thing. That's what happened in life. If there's an accident and 100 people, 100 people will have different points of view in that.
right.
And pretty much that's what happened in life in many ways. If we are not aware about all those little things, we assume that the person next to me just give the meaning to that movie the same meaning that I gave. And I'm
Mhm.
just assuming that that person believes and thinks and realize whatever I realize after seeing the movie. And that's really interesting, but to have aware about that. Because for me, a lot of, miscommunication that happen in lives starts with a simple question that every usually people ask to other, do you believe in God? People say yes or
Mm,
no, assuming that the idea they have in their head about God, about death or whatever, yes or no, about love or whatever, instead of what do you mean by God? What is your
mhm.
definition of God? What is your point of view about God? And starting from there, let's see what are the common points that we have, and let's see
Yeah.
where do we have different points of view? That opens completely
Yes.
a new way, a wider understanding, a wider comprehension, in a really different way to talk, to discuss,
Mhm.
stuff. But we uh, we tend to assume that's the way we have been trained, that we are in a movie, 100 people is watching the movie, and all of them has the same conclusions, the same meaning, the same.
Yeah.
That's not how life really is, and to be aware about that, starting from there. Going to the bucket list, oof, a lot. I love to learn. I love to read, and I love to travel. And I haven't traveled enough. I want to travel more. I want to learn about a lot more stuff, and so a lot of things. And I want to
Yeah.
serve. Honestly, there's a point that I think that when we do through something and we start sharing with our friends and everything, and when some people tell you like some more people should hear what you just said, or you should
Mhm.
you know teach that, or all those things, and like I said before, it's just my point of view, but it's nice to see when somebody comes back and says to you, like what you said to me, and maybe you don't even remember, but that helped me a lot with this or with that, or that helped me a lot. And that's another thing that I want to do, serve, do something about, related to serve, uh to give meaning about that. My whole life I've been in the jobs that I've been, all of them pretty much lack of that,
Mm.
that idea or that sense that I'm doing something good, that my jobs and the things that I've been doing in my life, in a lot of ways, they were like the answers to some troubles, some issues that I got to resolve or whatever, instead of, doing that. And it's part of being aware about that. At the moment, I didn't realize, or I wasn't, aware enough. And well, in this modern life, we gotta some roles that we gotta play, and all those things that humans invented, in the society we live. But yeah, that's part of my bucket list too, and a lot of things, honestly. I already jump in skydiving, so that's that's check, but I want to do it again. For
Yeah.
example, and then, well, many things, many things. Honestly, it's a long list for me at
Yeah.
this point. Although I'm okay if but I still want to do a lot of stuff. Honestly,
Yeah. And I love that you said being of service, like you want to, because with all the knowledge, with all the things that you have learned, because you're a continual student, it sounds like, of the work you love to learn, you want to keep giving back, and you want to keep, teaching other people about what it is that you know that has helped you on your journey. Like, so coaching people and being able to show up for them and walk alongside them as they go on the journey too. I think that's beautiful to have that as part of, your bucket list, to really have um this work that has meaning for you, right? Because you've done jobs that don't carry the meaning that you'd like to have it carry, and so I think that's a beautiful thing. And being able to, you brought up the God concept, and that is such a trigger for so many people. It used to be a big trigger of mine when I heard the word God, and I'd be like, "Oh, nope, not gonna talk about that. I don't," like, because I had this idea, from Catholic school of what God was, and ever since I have allowed the opportunity to have more conversations about God and what it means and how people see it and view it, and when I say it, I don't like to he or she it. God, I just say, it's symbolism, it's whatever you decide to put to it. I don't get triggered now when I hear that word because I allowed myself to have more conversations and more opportunities to heal where I was not free. I heard that the other day. A trigger is actually an opportunity to heal where you're not free. And I thought that's such a beautiful way to put it because it allows you to say, oh, this is where I'm still stuck, or this is where I still have an agitation. And would I like to have the agitation be more of a curiosity? And I think that's what allows us to really be in oneness with each other, be in, communication with each other, is being able to hear those things, hear them out instead of shut them out.
this is life, and this is every single human, every single person, every single concept that we have in life.
Mm,
because there's a lot of little mirrors over there. Every single one of them is like a point of view. When
mm,
we met somebody, we're seeing maybe just this side, but not this. And sometimes people doesn't want you to see the other side. Sometimes that we hide ourselves, and we just present this part to the world, but not this, not behind,
yes.
not below, and it applies to everything and to anything for me, because the concept of God, which one of these mirrors you're seeing?
Mm,
Or maybe seeing from here, this is God, but God is bigger. So for other person seeing here has another concept, but it's still the same.
yeah, right.
Anything that happened in life, and every single idea pretty much is like a disco ball that has
Yes,
a lot to reflect, and everything depends the point of view. We are gonna see something here. We're gonna see something here really completely different.
right.
So the disco ball concept, I think, for me, applies to ideas, to person, and to life, because that's life too.
It is, and we're constantly there's so many mirrors in there, right? Like you were saying with the movie theater, like there's so many different perceptions, there's so many different views, there's so many different ways. Somebody's going to have a viewpoint on God over here, somebody's going to be bigger over here. And how do we learn to dance together in this disco of life, right? Like how do we do this? And it's by respecting each other's mirrors. I think
That's
that's
the key word
awesome.
for me. Respect.
Yeah,
Exactly.
love it.
Awareness, respect.
Yes. Thank you, Adrian. That's awesome. I love it.
Great.
So it's so cool. So I love that
It's
yeah.
easy to corrupt, with words. At the end, words are empty until we
Mhm.
give them meaning. That's the thing. That's
Right.
the power we have. But yeah, there are some words, key words for humans, that has been so distorted in a way, and assume that it means this or it means that. And it's it depends at the end, and that's the real power of the observer or the person that is using the word, at the end. And that you said it, that give us understanding. That will be a really different communication that we could have, using the agreements or another, teachings at the end to give you that awareness about that is key in a way, this starting from ourselves, like I said before, because that's the thing. You can notice sometimes when a person is not okay with themselves. Y- we can feel it, we can see it, it is reflected in many ways.
Yeah, there's a saying that your energy introduces you before your mouth does. And it's true. Somebody can be like, "I'm fine, I'm great," and da da da, but you can feel maybe that's not what's happening, within that exchange. So, I could talk to you all day, buddy, I mean,
I
we could
know.
just go on and
No,
on and
yeah, we can
oh,
go on.
this is so good. I just really appreciate you, and if somebody wanted to get a hold of you and they're like, "Man, Adrian is so cool. I wanna hang out with him. I wanna learn more from
right
him."
now right now will be my WhatsApp.
Your WhatsApp? Okay.
Yeah, right now I'm working in some projects to have some presence in social media
Okay.
in a,
Okay,
in
great.
a small amount of time. Hopefully, there's gonna be some stuff. But right now, probably is gonna be my WhatsApp or my email right now.
Okay, so we'll put the WhatsApp, phone number and the email address in this podcast episode so people can get a hold of you if they want, and they can reach out to you in those ways. Adrian, thank you so much for being on the show. I love you so much, and I just
Love
appreciate
you
our
too.
conversations,
Big hug.
and big hugs. Yes, you're so good at that.
Final
Big
message.
hugs.
Final message
Yes.
according with this podcast.
Ooh, stay positive. I love that. I love that. It looks like Skeletor.
Yeah, the angel of death is
The
a
angel of
reminder.
death. Yes. Yes. Thank you. All right. Love you, bud. We'll sign off. Bye.
Okay.